Before we begin, a small request. If you find value in these explorations, consider liking this video, commenting with your thoughts, and subscribing to Stable Dynamics. Our purpose here is to dissect the architecture of obsession, the mechanics of power, and the elemental forces that can hollow a man out from the inside, leaving nothing but a shell driven by a single, destructive purpose. We journey into the dark water of the human soul. Today, our vessel is a whaling ship, our ocean a masterpiece of American literature, and our abyss is the mind of a madman. Call me Ishmael. It begins with an invitation, not a command, but a request, an offering of a name, a persona, a mask. It's the most famous opening line in American literature, and for good reason. It doesn't say, "I am Ishmael." It says, "Call me Ishmael." The distinction is crucial. It suggests that the man we are about to meet is a survivor, a storyteller who has chosen this name to frame his tale. He is at once our guide and a ghost, a man who has been to the edge of existence and returned, bearing a story that is not entirely his own. He invites us into his confidence, into the heart of a memory that haunts him, and by extension, will soon haunt us. 4 words, deceptively calm, but they are the quiet intake of breath before a storm that will consume everything. By the end of this telling, a ship, the Pequod, a microcosm of humanity, will be splintered into the sea. Dozens of men drawn from all corners of the globe will die in terror and confusion. And one man, their captain, will consciously, deliberately choose the ecstasy of hatred over the simple, profound act of living. This is not just a story of a whale hunt. It is a post-mortem examination of a catastrophe, an autopsy of a singular, all-consuming obsession. Our story begins not on the open ocean, but on land, in the suffocating confines of the city, in the heart of a man for whom civilization has become a cage. For Ishmael, the world of men is a place of quiet desperation, of ledgers and deadlines, of social obligations that feel like shackles. It is a world that grinds the soul down. He feels a spiritual sickness, a deep, internal melancholy that he can only describe in meteorological terms. It is a malaise that settles in the bones, a precursor to a dangerous impulse. He finds himself, he says, involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet. This is not idle poetry. It is a confession of a man teetering on the brink. The city, with its endless procession of human folly, pushes him toward self-destruction. He recognizes this darkness within himself, this pull towards the ultimate void. And so, he devises a cure, his substitute for pistol and ball. He must escape the land, which has become synonymous with death, and flee to the water, which, paradoxically, represents life, renewal, and possibility. The sea is the great, untamed frontier of the 19th century imagination. It is a place without maps, without laws, without the suffocating judgment of society. It is a realm of pure, elemental force. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is his therapy. The sea is not a destination, but a treatment. A harsh, unforgiving medicine for a spiritual ailment. He is drawn to the whaling industry specifically, not the merchant service with its predictable routes and mundane responsibilities. No, he craves the boisterous something of the whale hunt. He is drawn to the danger, the sheer terrifying majesty of confronting the largest creature on the planet. He is attracted to the forbidden seas and the nameless perils of the fishery. It is a desire to replace the inner turmoil with an external one, to face a tangible monster in order to forget the formless ones within. He chooses Nantucket, the historical heart of American whaling. An island born of the sea, built by whale oil, its people defined by their relationship with the vast, unforgiving ocean. To go to Nantucket is to go to the source, to commit fully to the life he seeks. It is a pilgrimage. The journey itself is part of the cure, a shedding of his former life as he moves from Manhattan to New Bedford and finally to the island that floats in the Atlantic like a ship forever at anchor. In New Bedford, a city bustling with the commerce of death, he gets his first real taste of this world. The entire town smells of whale oil. The streets are filled with sailors from every nation, their faces telling stories of distant seas and hard lives. Here, the whale is not a creature of myth, but a commodity. It is a collection of parts to be rendered, processed, and sold. It is barrels of oil, slabs of blubber, bone for corsets. This is the brutal, industrial reality that underpins the romance of the sea. It is a dirty, bloody, and profitable business. And Ishmael, the philosopher and dreamer, must confront this reality head-on. He is not joining a crew of adventurers. He is signing on to be a factory worker on a floating abattoir. This is the fundamental divide that will define the tragedy of the Pequod. Ishmael seeks escape. He goes to sea to find perspective, to lose himself in the vastness of the ocean, and in doing so, find himself again. He wants to be a part of something larger than his own small anxieties. His journey is inward. Ahab, the captain he has yet to meet, seeks domination. He goes to sea not to escape himself, but to impose himself upon the world, to hunt down and destroy the creature that scarred him. His journey is outward, a projection of his inner rage onto the canvas of the natural world. That critical difference, the man who wants to be absorbed by the sea versus the man who wants to conquer it, will decide who survives. Ishmael's restlessness is a universal human feeling. It is the yearning for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless. It is the desire to break free from the mundane and touch something real, something elemental. But in this story, that noble impulse leads him into the orbit of a terrible, gravitational force. He signs onto a ship, the Pequod, sight unseen, captain unknown. He is driven by fate, by a sense of inevitability he cannot explain. He is a free man making a choice that will ultimately enslave him to another man's madness. The world of the port is a liminal space, a threshold between the solid ground of society and the liquid chaos of the sea. It is a place of transactions, of men signing their lives away for a share of the profits. It is a world of hard labor, of preparing the vessel for its long, arduous journey. Every object tells a story of violence and utility. The tools of the trade are not neutral. They are weapons. They are a testament to the brutal efficiency required to hunt and kill a leviathan. The ship itself is a veteran of countless battles. Its timbers are soaked in the blood and oil of 1,000 whales. It is a vessel with a history, a personality. It is described as a cannibal of a craft, decorated with the bones and teeth of its prey. It wears its history of violence openly. For Ishmael, this is exotic and thrilling. He does not yet understand that he is stepping into a coffin. The sea cleanses some men. It washes away the grime of the land and offers a stark, simple existence. For others, it does not cleanse. It sharpens. It hones their existing nature to a razor's edge. It provides a vast, empty stage for their deepest pathologies to play out. Ishmael hopes for the former. He is about to be confronted by the terrifying reality of the latter. The atmosphere on the docks is thick with anticipation and foreboding. The owners of the Pequod, Bildad, and Peleg are stern, pragmatic Quakers, men who have reconciled their faith with the bloody business of whaling. They speak of profits and shares, but they also hint at the ship's captain, Ahab, a man of great renown and dark reputation. He is a grand, ungodly, godlike man, they say. He is recovering from a grievous injury, an encounter with a legendary white whale that took his leg. He remains unseen, a phantom presence looming over the entire enterprise. This is the first sign of him. Not a man, but a sound. An unnatural rhythm that cuts through the organic noises of the ship and the sea. It is the sound of something broken and remade, something artificial and unyielding. It is the sound of obsession, walking the decks before its owner even shows his face. The crew falls silent. The work continues, but the mood has shifted. A weight has settled over the ship. Ishmael, our narrator, our witness, has found his escape. He has traded the anxieties of the land for the vast, open promise of the sea. He has signed his name, taken his place, and now stands on the deck of a ship bound for the Pacific. He feels the swell of the ocean beneath his feet and the wind on his face, and for a moment, he believes he is free. He does not yet know that he has merely exchanged one prison for another, far more terrible one. Soon, a presence will step out of that cabin and into the wind, a man who will not be carried by the currents, but will seek to bend them, and every soul on this ship, to the singular, terrible purpose of his will. The voyage has begun. The trap is set. For days, the Pequod had been a ship with a phantom captain. We sailed under the command of his mates, but the true center of power remained unseen, a brooding presence felt only through the deck planks above our heads. He was a rumor, a ghost in his own floating kingdom. The crew spoke of him in hushed tones, trading stories of his last voyage, of the fury that had cost him his leg. Was he mad? Was he cursed? The not knowing was a kind of fog in itself, wrapping around the ship, muffling our spirits. We were a body without a head, adrift on an endless sea, waiting for our commander to reveal himself. The ship itself seemed to be holding its breath, the groan of its timbers a low, constant question. Every creak from the captain's cabin, every shadow that moved behind his window, sent a ripple of speculation through the men. We were not just whalers. We were acolytes in a floating monastery, awaiting the appearance of a fearsome abbot. Then, one morning, a new sound. Not the familiar slap of a leather boot, but a hard, resonant tap. A sound of dead matter striking living wood. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and it cut through the din of the wind and waves. Tap, drag, tap. It was the sound of a man who did not walk upon the world so much as he hammered his will into it with every step. This was not the gait of a simple sailor. It was the percussion of a purpose so singular it had carved its own cadence. The sound traveled from the quarterdeck, a slow, inexorable advance that silenced conversations and drew every eye. It was the sound of a reckoning. And there he was. He did not emerge. He appeared, as if summoned from the very wood of the ship. He stood, a silhouette carved from granite and shadow, his long coat whipping in the wind. He seemed less a man and more a monument to some terrible, forgotten battle. Ahab. The name itself had weight. Now, the man gave it gravity. He was not as the rumors painted him, not a raving lunatic, not a broken invalid. He was something far more unsettling, a man who had been unmade and then remade himself, not from flesh and blood, but from iron and obsession. He was a grand, ungodly, godlike man, scarred, upright, imposing, sharpened by loss. A livid, whitish scar threaded its way down his face, a lightning strike of old agony. It was said by some that it was a birthmark, that he was branded from the cradle. Others whispered it was the mark of a celestial fire, a punishment from God himself. But looking at him, you felt it was neither. It was a map of his soul, a crack in the facade of a man, revealing the molten core of fury within. It was not a mark of weakness, but the seal of a terrible vow. It spoke of a pain so profound it had permanently etched itself onto his being, a constant reminder of the wound that festered deep inside. He stood nailed to his deck, his ivory leg planted in a hole bored into the planks for that very purpose. He was rooted to the ship, a part of its structure, its grim figurehead now facing aft. He surveyed his domain, the ship, the sea, the sky, not as a captain surveys his charge, but as a monarch surveys his conquered territory. The wind howled, tearing at his coat, but he seemed to command it, to bend it to his stillness. The waves crashed against the hull, but he was the rock they broke upon. In his presence, the chaotic power of the ocean felt conditional. He makes the elements feel negotiable. The crew, a rough collection of seasoned hunters and hardened sea dogs, fell silent. Men who would face a thrashing whale without flinching now found themselves unable to meet his gaze. There was a force emanating from him, a pressure that bent the will of others. It wasn't the blustering authority of a lesser officer. It was something deeper, more fundamental. Authority without volume, gravity without orbit. He did not need to shout to be obeyed. His silence was more commanding than any order. His stillness was more potent than any action. We were all caught in his field, our own purposes suddenly seeming trivial, our own wills dissolving into his. His gaze swept the deck. It was not a look of inspection, but of assessment, of measurement. His eyes, sunk deep in their sockets, seemed to hold the darkness of the deep sea itself. They were not the eyes of a man who sees the world, but of a man who sees through it, to the malignant truth he believes lies behind the pasteboard mask of reality. In them, you saw the monomaniacal fire, the burning coal of a single, all-consuming thought. He was looking for something in us, not for sailors, not for whalers, but for instruments. For weapons he could aim at the heart of the sea, a presence that eats the horizon. He had been forged in the crucible of an unimaginable encounter. He was a man who had battled a living myth and returned, though not whole. The whale had taken his leg, but it had given him something in return, a purpose as vast and as terrible as the ocean itself. He was no longer just a man hunting a whale for profit. He was a prophet of vengeance, a high priest of hatred, and this ship, the Pequod, was his temple. And we, the crew, were his congregation, gathered to hear a sermon that would be preached, not in words but in blood and fury. Rising is not enough. He needs the world to kneel.